I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, sir. I thought the film was fantastic. I was kind of looking at your filmography, and so I'm wondering, there's obviously a theme to a lot of what you work on. What drew you to this specific project?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's no secret that I'm a person of faith, and that the majority of my projects are going to capture, whether it's like The Chosen, the actual story of Jesus, a multi-season show about first century Galilee, or any of my movies. Um, I bring my background and my perspective to it, and I think that's true of any filmmakers. They're bringing their life experience. So what drew me to the best Christmas pageant ever was almost 20 years ago. I read this book to my kids, and I had read it as a kid myself in public school, but didn't remember a whole lot about it. But when I'm reading this book, it's a story of the six Herdman kids, the worst kids in the history of the world, which is the opening sentence of the book, which I thought was funny and interesting and witty. And I'm reading it, I'm laughing. It's very charming. It's nostalgic. This book's been a bestseller for 50 years. It's been performed as a play. It's a classic. So I love that. I'm a huge Christmas fan, of course. I get to the last chapter when all of it comes together, right? And these, I don't want to give anything away, but the title is the best Christmas pageant ever. So it of course is telling you in the title that these six kids who take over the pageant, they hijack the Christmas pageant, play all the main roles. Everyone thinks it's going to be a disaster. But because of their poverty, because of their outsider status, they're actually closer to the heart of the Christmas story than anyone else is. Well, I really related to that on many levels. Number one, I love kids. I love troubled kids. I'm an adoptive parent. My extended family, there's a lot of adoption in our family. A lot of the work I've done and volunteer work has been with troubled youth. And I love also the fact that the church that's putting on this pageant, which of course I can relate to as a lifelong churchgoer, they need to learn something too. This isn't one of those pedantic, pious, the Christians are teaching the evil people all about what they need to learn. Everyone needed to learn something. Everyone needed something from each other. Everyone needed to see the other as maybe they needed to shed some of their preconceived ideas. And I love that message. And I think it's especially relevant today, when everything has gotten so tribal. So the message of it really spoke to me. But just from as a filmmaker, the tone, the mixture of humor and pathos. I'm guessing that if you enjoyed the film, that you were laughing, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's this salty discharge?
Oh yeah.
That's coming, and I love that. I love that tension between comedy and pathos. That really spoke to me as well. So everything about it. And so that's why I've chased the rights to it for 15 years. And ultimately when The Chosen became really successful, that made me a little bit more of a worthy competitor for the title of director of this film, and finally got the rights a few years ago.
Well, it's funny is I connected with this movie way more than I expected to, because it looked fun, and I like a good holiday film, and
Right.
especially when you get bad kids and they're acting crazy and chaos. My wife, on the other hand, she doesn't like movies with a lot of chaos. They stress her out, right?
Right.
But she's also very involved in the church. Her dad's a minister. She
Yeah.
teaches Bible school. She's ordained, all these kind of things. And so I teach martial arts. So I deal with the little kids all the time. So I've got all the crazy kids. I mean, she's
Right.
got, so we both got in there and found that we were both finding different connections,
Mm-hmm.
same thing, you know. And
Yeah.
at the end of the film, my wife was blubbering. If I
Yeah.
didn't know when it's about time, I'm always like, is it about to happen, And then,
Right.
of course, I think the smaller things got me, like the moments of looking at the picture of Mary and that power
Right.
sequence, which I thought was a brilliant sequence of how it kind of come back and just no words, just looking at it, you know.
Right.
It's moments like that that I think it makes it bigger than what it might have been otherwise.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people like yourself when I've done conversations like this where they say it was an unexpected joy. I was unexpectedly surprised or moved. Just a conversation I had a couple of days ago, someone just said, "This was a pleasant surprise." And I'm like, all right. So I stopped. I said, "All right, I keep hearing that. What about it was surprising or unexpected to you?" And I think uh, because it's a Christmas film, because it's a comedy, it's family friendly, you just assume it's going to be hijinks and maybe a
Right.
sweet little something at the end. And I think what drew me to the project is what I think is causing people to be unexpectedly moved by it, which is I got to that last chapter and I'm crying so hard I can't see the pages. I mean, it's so well written and it comes at you so unexpectedly that I think I was like, this deserves to be in the pantheon of Christmas classics. You know, when I watch It's a Wonderful Life, of course, I'm moved every year that I watch it. And you got movies like Elf and Home Alone and A Christmas Story, all the classics. I'm like, there needs to be something in the mix here that actually reflects where this story came from. I mean, that actually, at least if not puts a spotlight on it, at least acknowledges the roots of the Christmas story that we all love. But then B has something that's truly moving, and isn't just hijinks, and then they learn a quick lesson at the end. And that's what we've been hearing. And in fact, even the critics, we got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not only is that hard to do in general, but for a family-friendly Christmas movie, it's not typical. And I think it's because that original story that moved me so much. I think I to my own, in all humility, I think I captured that from the book, and I stand on her shoulders, the author's shoulders. But I think we found something that felt nostalgic. It didn't feel preachy, didn't feel pious, but felt real. And when we did that, I think the original intention of the book is just a beautiful, beautiful message.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was fixing to say too. Is I'm very cautious when I watch a movie that features a very specific focal point, whether it be religion or sexuality or any these kind of things. Are they going to get too preachy? Are they trying to get in my face?
No one wants propaganda.
Story happen,
Yeah.
And I wasn't worried about with this film, but I was also surprised because I wasn't aware going in really the direction of the film. I'd seen the trailers and I actually planned to see it at the theater, and then one thing after another kept happening, and we were bummed out. And I told my wife, we're like, finally we get to watch this movie, and I was expecting a good Christmas comedy, and I knew it was a church thing, so that's some fun church stuff, and I love that it kind of, I don't want to say sneaks in, but it kind of circles around in a way that you're interested in, the way I think people should also ministry to people, not jump in their face and say, do you know Jesus?
Right.
Kind of walk into that moment where you see your opening, you have a discussion, and then expands that. But also, like you said, it showed the flaws in the people in the church too, that needed a little reminder of what they were supposed to be doing and where the importance was.
Right. And that's the thing. You're talking about propaganda. No one wants propaganda. That's not why we go to the movies. And so when you have a faith-based story and even the term faith-based can be confusing, but where the message is ultimately a biblical message or a Christian message, or it's an ethnic message. Let's say it's you're watching, whether, like you said, sexuality or ethnicity or any movie or TV show that comes from a specific point of view or culture. You're like, I hope this isn't propaganda trying to convert me to this culture or tell me why this culture is better than other cultures, whatever that culture may be. And the best movies they just tell an authentic story. I don't watch Schindler's List and think, oh, this is such a Jewish story, it's not for me.
Right.
Or Straight Outta Compton. Of course, I'm not sitting there going, well, this isn't for me because I'm white. I'm like, this is a human story. This is a great story, well told. And I'm not maybe part of that culture, but I certainly can appreciate it and find the humanity of it and connect to it in that way. And I think that's what Best Christmas Pageant Ever does. And it's especially useful when it's a Christmas movie and it's all about thinking past the things that divide us and finding how we can learn from each other, which I think is important.
Well, I think the powerful nature of this film too is the great performances you were able to get out of those kids. Because I know working with kids, teaching them, it's kind of a joking, but in a way of, I teach kids where they get out of line. We're doing martial arts. I can hit them if they get out of line. In normal teaching, you can't do that. And trying to get small things out of them, I can't imagine the differences for you as a director. How different is it for work with that many kids as opposed to all adult actors?
Well, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, and Pete Holmes, who plays the dad, he's a comic, a great comedian, and Judy Greer, who's amazing, and she's a comedic actress as well. They will tell you they were sometimes worse behaved than the kids were, but the kids there's strengths and weaknesses with everything because kids happen to be I'm sure you've experienced this as a martial arts teacher. The amount of ADHD packed into one room could be on display at the Smithsonian. It was truly a wild ride sometimes, but they're also super prepared. Like they've got everyone's lines memorized. They're going to do what you tell them. they don't argue about motivation or anything like that. Like they're there to do it. So in that case, it sometimes is easier. But I think directing is always challenging. It's always a psychological test. I became a far better filmmaker when I started studying psychology and communication and leadership and management than when I just was focused on how to make a good film. And so that all those tricks of the trade of being a dad, being a communicator, a leader, a boss, like I am of my company, those all went into directing kids, and that goes into directing adults as well. So there's lots of differences, but there's also, it's not like it's harder or easier. It's all hard. So
Understood.
we made it work.
Well, I do want to say that I wasn't unexpectedly surprised. I expected to enjoy this film from what I saw it was going to be. I was more unexpected about how hard it hit.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And I love any kind of movie that makes you feel something you didn't expect to feel in that kind of movie. And I think I just want to congratulate you. I think the movie is fantastic. I think it's going to be a Christmas classic. It's going to get a message to people that need it. And it's going to entertain the other people that might not see the message. But either way, it delivers.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's still in theaters now, still plugging along, and also available for home viewing, so people on Christmas Eve can maybe gather around and check it out.
Awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate your time. It was an honor to speak with you. I can't wait to see what else you got coming up.
Thanks so much, Bobby. Talk soon.
Thank you. Have a great day and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.